Hey everyone, welcome back. I'm Michael and we're going to be getting right back into some more Reddit stories. If you enjoy the video, make sure to leave a like and subscribe. Now, without further ado, let's begin. This story was posted by a throwaway account over a year ago in the Off My Chest subreddit. The post is titled, "My cancer survivor wife wanted a hall pass. My wife and I have been married since 2001 and together since 1999. She is the most intelligent, thoughtful, caring, and loyal person I know, and I have always thought of myself as fortunate to have met and married her. She is, even today, aesthetically beautiful, and men have told her this throughout our marriage. She has always shot them down. Earlier this year, she was diagnosed with uterine cancer, stage 1, and had a full hysterectomy. I was never concerned about the cancer as it was diagnosed early and dealt with quickly, and she made a full recovery. I took time off work to look after her after the surgery, and all seemed well. There were some to be expected emotional instances on her part, and although I am not an emotional person, we dealt with them together. After her recovery, she was insistent that we start living life to the fullest. We took a 10-day trip to Europe, followed by a trip to Belize. We also have a trip to the UK, Spain, and Portugal later this year. I am fine with these things as they involve building memories and crossing bucket list adventures off her list. I also understand that these are a result of feeling fragile on her part. She also took up yoga, swimming, and healthy cooking classes. I was fully on board until last week. Last week, she came home from work and told me she wanted a hall pass, a one-time opportunity for her to have sex with someone else besides me. She said that since her cancer diagnosis, her outlook on life has changed and she doesn't want to be handcuffed from doing things she wants to do. She explained that there is this guy at her work that she has always had some attraction to. He is leaving the company and she will never see him again, so this is the perfect opportunity to sleep with someone else. She said that I could say no, of course, but that she would be mad and disappointed at me for an indeterminate amount of time, and that it would be confirmation of my male toxicity and insecurity. I don't consider myself to be toxic, and if not wanting my wife of 20 plus years to have sex with someone else is insecure, then I guess I am insecure. I told her that I appreciated her talking to me about this, but approval via coercion is not approval. I also said that I do not appreciate her language in describing my, as of yet, unknown reaction to this very large issue that could affect the rest of our marriage life. I got up in the morning and she basically said that she was sorry for putting such a large decision solely on my shoulders. To help, she was taking the decision away from me. She booked a hotel near where her coworkers are having a party / send-off for this guy, and she would spend the night there with him. She hoped that I would be here when she got back. She said that she would answer any questions I have about the night after it happened, but not before. She will not tell me who he is or anything about him because she knows me too well, and that I will dwell and obsess over him, which would make it too real for me. This is pretty accurate. Her point of view is that the less I know, the better, which contradicts the offer to tell me anything I want to know after it happened. I think she knows I won't want to know or ask anything, or she simply will not tell me. Part of me thinks that at least she has been honest with me and she has been through a lot since finding out she had cancer. Maybe I should just let it happen. I certainly have no concept of what she went through, so I cannot dismiss how this affected her mental state and outlook on life. Part of me wants to put my foot down and say this is not going to happen and deal with the consequences when they happen. Her best friend called me callous for even suggesting that I wouldn't let it happen because I have no idea what she went through. I find it hard to believe that she is okay with the possibility of throwing away over 20 years of marriage over some guy she has had no relationship with outside of work. I should just call her bluff. Maybe she thinks similarly that I won't throw away the marriage because of one encounter. I just don't know what to do. I empathize with her and then an instant later I am angry with her. Part of me wants to know who this guy is. What does he look like? What has he got that is so enthralling for her? Is he just a safe option? Is he married? Does his wife know? Would I be a callous asshole for saying no? What can I do besides walking away? Update. I received a ton of advice that I couldn't possibly respond to. I do appreciate the people who took the time to offer advice in the comments or via private messages. It has been an exhausting couple of days. I was hoping that my opposition to her plans would give her pause, but unfortunately that did not happen. I said I am a hard no and I am not sure how I will feel about you if you go ahead with it. I was met once again with "This is for me, it will be one time, what can I say to help you deal with it, you'll get over it. We were meant to be regardless regardless of the situation, remarks leading up to Saturday. She left Saturday ostensibly to meet her coworkers, but in reality to be with the guy. I asked her to text me when she was leaving for the bar, and when she did, I asked her if she was really going to go through with this. After her response, "I'm not answering any more questions tonight, I will see you tomorrow," I blocked my wife. Then I did something either stupid or brilliant. I went to the area where the get-together was happening. Well, not the bar itself, but a transit bench across the street. I waited for a long time. It was running through my mind leading up to this event that I needed to know who this guy was, maybe to compare myself against him, to see what he had that I do not. It was driving me crazy not knowing who he was and what was so special about him that she would ruin a marriage for. After what seemed like eternity, a woman that I recognized from my wife's office left the bar and got into a cab. Soon, other people started filing out, and a whole group came out, and people were hugging a man and shaking his hand. I assumed that I had found my guy. I didn't see my wife, and I had a brief thought that maybe she called it all off. I unblocked her, and there were no messages. Everyone said their goodbyes and left. The guy was standing outside for a few minutes, and then my wife came out. She looked around, took his hand, and started walking away together. Of all the emotions I went through, trepidation, sadness, anger, it was disgust that really encapsulated the event for me. This guy was short, fat, and bald, all the things I cannot compete with. Ultimately, I felt like a pervert for watching from a distance. I followed until they got to the hotel and then turned around and went home. I woke up Sunday morning and put a lock on the master bedroom door. I moved her things to the spare room and left a note asking her to find other accommodations as quickly as possible. I visited another friend who is a lawyer, and he gave me some sage advice and a couple of recommendations for divorce attorneys and made the introductions. My wife had been calling me numerous times since around 11 or so. Once blocked, the calls go to voicemail. I listened to the first couple but felt nothing but some satisfaction when she couldn't get through to me and she was obviously becoming concerned. I didn't want to go home, but I left in such a hurry that I didn't plan an overnight properly. I got home around 9, and as per my buddy's advice, I recorded the interaction. I was halfway up the stairs when she came up from the family room asking what was going on and if we could talk. I thought we had talked about this. I just answered with, "I am not interested in discussing this tonight," and went to bed. After not getting a response from me through the door, she left me alone. I feel kind of like a child for not talking with her and shutting the door on her, but I just couldn't look at her. Monday, I got up and ready for work. She was waiting for me and asked if we could discuss getting back to normal. I said, "You have been doing all the talking for the both of us for the last week, why don't you continue?" and left for work. I have an appointment with the attorneys my friend recommended for this week. Update 2. My lawyer wasn't available for a few days, so I was faced with the reality of having to live with my wife in the interim. I really didn't want to go home and have any discussion, let alone a discussion about our relationship. When I did get home, I was basically ambushed by her friends and my mother-in-law. Instead of taking a remorseful approach, they decided that a full court press was what the situation warranted, and I was basically berated by them. The best friend was definitely the ringleader, but all of them decided to say such things as, "She's been through a lot, you don't know what she's been through, you have no idea what it is like to face something like this was a one-time thing. At least she told you she could have hidden it from you, she will never see the guy again." And my favorite, "You are an asshole for what you have been putting her through these last couple of days." I listened with a dumbass smirk on my face, and when there was a lull in their fury, I asked if they were all done now. Then I asked my wife if there was anyone in her circle of friends or anyone else that she forgot to tell about this. I quietly informed all of them that I was going to sit down with their husbands and tell them about how they verbally abused me, shamed me, and tried to coerce me into staying with a cheater. After I told them to leave, I said that I had no say in the entire event, so they have no say in whether I stay or not. My soon-to-be ex-wife sort of apologized. She said that she regretted the entire thing. I said there is a difference between regret and remorse. You regret what happened because of the cause and effect. You have regret because your life will never be the same. Our relationship will never be the same, because you were wholly and willfully unconcerned about me and what I wanted. She asked if I had any questions that she would answer now, no matter how disturbing. I said that the one question I do have is why? Not necessarily why this guy, why this low-end, unattractive, unfit guy, but why someone else in the first place. She said that the cancer scared her to her core. She felt like she was rushing toward mortality, and stepping out of that tunnel was appealing. She said that after all this time of being a wife and mother and worrying about family, this was something just for her. and escape. The guy was just someone who was interested in her for a long time. She knew wouldn't say no and was completely opposite to me. I said that if I was going to risk my marriage, the woman would have to be a serious upgrade from you. I told her that I saw you and him coming out of the bar that night. I watched you walk away from the bar hand in hand towards the hotel. I said that you looked too familiar with each other and asked if there was something going on before all this. She said no, but who knows if that is the truth or not. I said that after all our years together, your lack of respect for me was astonishing. I finished by saying that I would never be able to look at myself in the mirror again if I condoned that level of disrespect and stayed with you. I said I hope we can go our separate ways amicably and that I have an appointment with a lawyer later in the week. I again asked her to find some other accommodations and she simply said, I am not going anywhere. We are not getting a divorce. I will give you all the time you need and do whatever you need to recover from this. We will get past this. She has asked me to go to marriage counseling, which I refused. Why would I go to counseling? I did nothing to warrant needing a therapist's advice. I had her served and gave her a notice to vacate. She has moved in with her mom, but I find her constantly coming by to see if I need anything or making suggestions like, what if we had an open relationship only on your side or threesomes, which seems kind of desperate and pathetic. Rebuffing her constantly and telling her she has to call to ask permission before coming by has finally seemed to get through to her that there will be no us going forward. She has said that she will drag the divorce out for as long as possible, but so far has been compliant. The worst part of all this is telling my daughter that we are getting a divorce and why, followed closely by her begging me to give her mom another chance. I'm not sure I would have been afforded the same consideration if I was the one who was cheating. User Jokester said, I remember when these posts came out. His wife took him for granted. She never thought he would divorce her over her infidelity. She had cheating friends who gave her bad advice. Ultimately, it was her decision. It wasn't a problem for her until she started suffering from the consequences of those decisions. This was how she repaid her husband for being a loyal caregiver in her time of need. To this user, Mindtaker said, I have been this guy, just not with the cancer, just the cheating. Dude is doing the right thing, setting the example for his daughter that you don't forgive cheating and accept disrespect. I also said I would never get married again. Here's the thing though, when you get into your 30s and 40s, being a devoted father who left a cheater but has a co-parenting relationship with their ex and always puts their kid first makes you a giant target. A big target for successful, strong women who know who they are and what they want. My dating life was medium before I got married. It was epic after my divorce, not in numbers. I'm not a big sleep around guy, but in quality. I dated a professional salsa dancer, the CEO of a medium-sized company, and ended up marrying a doctor. He is so going to end up married again. He is a stand-up dude. His daughter is probably rad, and he won't be able to keep the ladies at bay for long once they learn he is on the market. I think a stand-up father who stood by his wife through cancer, doesn't tolerate cheating, is respectful even when angry, ticks a lot of boxes for a lot of women. User Kuet said, a combination of huge self-centeredness and a deep lack of empathy. Even when she saw his reaction after the cheating, she chose to show him that everyone was informed of it. It was a very stupid move and it shows her lack of emotional intelligence. Feeling humiliated when cheated on is very common and can contribute to the divorce decision in itself. Still, she put everyone in the loop in the hope that it would make him forgive her, and it just reinforced his decision. User Lulu said, anyone who has gone through a long marriage that has hit a hard time understands that moment where you aren't sure if you want to see if the thing you're worried about happens or stand up and degrade yourself in the moment. It's not always cheating. Sometimes it's them leaving for a while because you've been arguing or some other pivotal moment. I wonder if he's happy he didn't degrade himself. I don't know which person I'd prefer to be. Either way, I don't understand the idea of worrying about death and wanting to have an affair outside of a long-term and happy marriage. He seems ultra focused on the idea that this guy was unattractive, but I'm pretty sure that he'd have problems if he was attractive too. The second post was made by a user named Purple Fur Socks in the same subreddit. The post is titled, I've been lying to my family for 25 years. I guess it's time for me to come clean. Not because I feel too bad for what I've been doing, but because it's possible my eldest son is onto me. I have 3 kids and a wonderful wife. For more than 25 years, our family has loved doing puzzles together. Since we started, I've done something that may seem unsavory to people who don't understand the joy of putting in that final piece. To ensure it was always me, whenever Whenever we start a new puzzle, I take one of the pieces and hide it in a green sock that's at the bottom of my dresser. Whenever we get to the very end, we all once again claim to have lost a piece. We all search frantically until I'm the hero who finds it. Well, this past Sunday, we got to completion once again, only this time there are 2 pieces missing. We begin searching. It may be my imagination, but my eldest son gave me a look, a half smirk. I think he's onto me. Derek, if you're reading this, I have more patience than you do. I'll hold my peace forever if I need to. Find yours first and let's end this madness. Update. A fellow user sent me a private message with an incredible idea. I'm going to try and contact the manufacturer and order his missing piece. I'm going to find it when it arrives, then find mine immediately after. I almost feel bad when I consider how truly confused he will be. Thank you, Spocking and Spores. I don't think he's found this thread yet because he hasn't approached me about it, so this could still work. I'm so excited. This will go down in family history. Checkmate. Update 2. Well, folks, I've been duped. I got up this morning, went into the kitchen to get some coffee, and as I walked past the puzzle, I noticed that it had been completed. All pieces were accounted for. I calmly and politely knocked on Derek's door and asked him about it. He denied knowing anything about it, super convincingly. I went back down to my bedroom, confused as ever, and just sat in bed with a blank stare. My wife asked me what was wrong, and I told her that the puzzle was completed and I had no idea how it got done. She literally started laughing like a hyena. I've always known about your dumb green sock. I'm in shock. I'm numb. It feels like a gut punch. So as it turns out, she's known what I've been doing for at least 10 years. She said she loved watching me walk around thinking I was some kind of criminal mastermind tricking everyone, and that's why she never said anything. She wanted me to have my win while she secretly laughed and had her own fun in secret. I don't even know what to say. I'm just processing everything. I cannot believe she's had this over me for so long, and I literally had no idea. She noticed a decade ago that I had just one green sock since I lost its pair forever ago and immediately knew something was up with it since I refused to throw it away. I guess that makes sense. I'm an idiot. I've come to the realization that she's actually the master here. It's her house and I should be thankful she lets me live in it. At least she promised not to tell the kids. User Obvious Lake said, I would have added the missing 2 pieces and then removed another random one, then sat back and let chaos reign. User Prof 1495 said, big marriage doesn't want you to know this, but a lot of marriage is just doing stupid things to entertain yourself and others. To this user, Chapsticky said, yeah, this is about as low stakes as it gets. Admittedly, I had a little twinge of this should be a child's joy that I get in these situations. As a similar example, when I was growing up, my mom cooked a lot of whole chickens and my dad would cut the wishbones out, dry them, and then pull them with my mom or even by himself in front of me and my siblings. I didn't pull a wishbone myself until I moved out, and I knew a family where the parents told the kids you could wish on a shooting star, but only the first one would come true and they had already done it. It's not important or anything, but I do hope that occasionally you let a kid get the satisfaction of the last puzzle piece even if you got to be the hero who found it. This final post was made in the relationship advice subreddit by a user named FunFollowing. The post is titled, My parents have chased away every boyfriend I've ever had. How do I prevent this from ruining my current relationship? I was very shy during high school and didn't leave my house unless I had to, so as a result, I didn't get a boyfriend until my freshman year of college. After 7 months of dating my first ever boyfriend, I brought him to my parents' house for dinner just so they could meet him. I had to step away for roughly 10 minutes to help my older sister with her baby, and when I came back, my boyfriend and my dad were having a full-blown fist fight. We managed to stop them, and my boyfriend stormed off without saying anything, while my dad insisted that my boyfriend was incredibly rude and disrespectful to him and my mother, and that a guy like that was no good for me because he'd just end up doing the same thing to me. I was shocked that my boyfriend could do such a thing because he had always been extremely sweet, and I'd never met or heard of anyone not liking him. However, when I called him and told him what my dad had said about what happened, all he did was laugh and say, I can believe whatever I want, before blocking me on everything. I was deeply disturbed by this, but my mom and sister insisted that he had just shown his true colors and said my dad saved me from an abuser. I reluctantly accepted this, but something about it felt really off. I met my second boyfriend several months later during my sophomore year. part of me still felt that my parents were part of the problem with my last boyfriend, so I managed to get him to wait an entire year before introducing him to my parents. From the moment she laid eyes on him, every word my mom spoke to him was dripping with fake friendliness and subtle jabs implying she did not approve of him, which made him visibly uncomfortable. While we were eating dinner, she began asking me why I decided to date my boyfriend and asked about other guys and why they didn't work out. At this point, it was clear what they were trying to do, and I silently vowed to talk to my boyfriend and tell him how my parents were trying to sabotage me. Unfortunately, it didn't get that far as my dad chimed in and demanded to know how a boy who couldn't support himself financially was ever going to support his daughter. Mind you, we were both juniors in college at this point, and both of us were working part-time jobs, so this question was really insane. He responded by saying he'd already decided he wanted nothing to do with this family and was planning to break up with me when he got home, but he's just going to leave now. Within minutes, he was gone and I was blocked again. My parents insisted that they did nothing wrong and just wanted to test his confidence, as any parents would. But I pointed out that this was the second boyfriend they chased away and they didn't do anything to scare off my older sister's husband. I went low contact with them after that, but fast forwarding a little bit, I eventually allowed them to gaslight me into introducing them to my third boyfriend, whom I had met towards the end of my senior year. Basically, the same thing happened. I had made it through college unable to find a long-term boyfriend purely because of my parents. I did meet my current boyfriend 2 years ago, and I have managed to avoid introducing him to my family thus far. If he ever brought it up, I would always have a ready-made excuse prepared to explain why it wasn't possible, which has been pretty easy because he usually only asks about them when planning for major holidays. I have fallen madly in love with him and hope to start a family with him one day, but he recently told me that he can't even allow me to move in with him until he's had a chance to meet my family. I do not know what to do, as I know my parents will make it their mission to break us up if they meet him, but based on his insistence on meeting them, I realize I can't put this off any longer. Usually, relationships end because of something one person in the relationship says or does, and it's incredibly unfair that I always end up single because of things I cannot control. I want to tell my boyfriend about my parents and insist that meeting them is a bad idea, but I've listened in on some of his conversations with his friends, and the general consensus among them seems to be that a girl with a super dysfunctional family is a massive red flag and an indicator of what their married life would be like. So I come here asking, how do I approach the problem that is my parents without risking losing the longest relationship I've ever had? If my parents end up being the cause of yet another breakup, I just don't know what I'll do. I just don't know. Edit. Wow, I made this post about an hour before going to bed, but woke up to quite a few comments here. Thank you so much to everyone who has helped me realize what I need to do. I've read through all of the comments and saw some recurring questions come up that I wanted to address. I am not fully no contact with my parents primarily because they helped me a lot financially during college and when I first graduated and was looking for a job. When I went low contact with them, they constantly yelled at me for being ungrateful and said family does not turn on each other over minor disagreements involving boys. It sounds ridiculous when I type it here, but after months of this treatment, when I found myself faced with the decision to either tell them I forgive them so they'll pay for my dorm room or refuse to forgive them and have to move back home, I ended up caving. Why didn't I stand up for my past boyfriends when I saw them being verbally abused? I don't know. I've never been allowed to talk back to my parents, so the thought of calling them out while we have company over is not something I realized I could do, I guess. My arguments with them after they ran off boyfriends 2 and 3 were the only times I've ever come into full conflict with them in my entire life. I will be going to my boyfriend's house today after work and will tell him everything. I am terrified he will still want to meet them. Just thinking about it has me shaking at my desk, but you all are right, he has a right to know and make his own decision. Edit 2, I told him and even showed him this post. To make a long story short, he still would like to meet them, but thanked me for telling him, as he always figured something was seriously wrong. My parents host dinners for our family every Sunday, and we will be attending this one. I suppose I'll make a new post with an update afterwards. User 0 Tic Tac Toe said, tell him the truth. And if he insists on meeting them, when your parents start to be rude, you tell them to shut up, stand up, and leave. User Usual Bumblebee said, first, I'm unable to find a long-term boyfriend purely because of my parents. This is not true. Maybe the first one was on them, but you were on notice after that. You knew and still you took them. Still sat there while they were being torn apart. You sat there while they were visibly uncomfortable. That's on you. Most people would have gotten up and left after the first jab, but no later than the second. And that is only if they were crazy enough to keep bringing them around. Why are you even still talking to them? They have no respect. User Confused ad said, be honest with him, tell him the story you shared here. Tell him that you do not want your parents to be a part of your life beyond occasional interactions because they are controlling. Tell him you decided this all on your own, and if it is him or someone else that you marry, your feelings won't change. You don't feel that your parents love you in the right way if they deliberately sabotaged your previous relationships, and you don't think you want them to be grandparents who treat your kids the same way you have been treated. Tell him he is meeting them at his own risk. Set up a code word between you two so that if one of you wants to leave, the word is said, and both of you shut up and split. To this, OP said, I'm starting to think telling him the truth about them is the right move, but I honestly do not want them to meet him or my future kids ever. I hadn't even considered how they would treat my future children based on how they've treated my partners over the years. Update. I meant to make this update a lot sooner, but since my last post, a lot has happened. I truly appreciate all the comments I received calling me out for hiding my parents being insane from my boyfriend and encouraging me to be honest with him. My boyfriend is pretty involved now, so I guess I should give him a name. I will call him Ethan. I sat Ethan down and told him about my parents and how they ran off my previous boyfriends before showing him my original post as many recommended. Fortunately, he did not seem to care that I hadn't told him, but he did agree with the many commenters that my parents were more than just insane. They were outright abusive. Although he understood how I felt, he still said he would like to meet them, both to see it for himself and because he felt there was an underlying reason for their behavior. My parents have dinner for the family every Sunday, which I have been attending on the weeks that I'm not hanging out with Ethan that day, so we agreed that he would come to the next one. When Sunday came and we arrived at my parents' house, my anxiety was through the roof. Ethan had agreed to leave with me the moment things started to get out of hand, but with my parents, that could have easily been as soon as we walked through the front door. My parents were surprisingly very nice though. My dad actually seemed excited to see Ethan, and my mom fawned over her daughter bringing home such a handsome, confident-looking man. I couldn't understand what was happening. Ethan even shot me a look a couple of times as if to silently ask if he was missing something because my parents were actually lovely. I want to provide a play-by-play of the entire night, but the post would just be too long. The point is, my parents had done a complete 180 from their previous behavior, and it made me look and feel crazy for trying to warn Ethan about them ahead of time. During dinner, my mom said she was so happy to see her daughter had finally found someone who wasn't judgmental and was willing to give me a chance because of the person I am today, because the past doesn't matter. My heart dropped. What was she talking about? Ethan said he doesn't know about anything in my past that may be a cause for concern, and my parents exchanged a concerned look as if it was rehearsed. My dad asked him why he thinks my previous relationships failed, and he said that he was under the impression they got scared away after meeting my parents. My mother looked at me with disappointment on her face and said, OP, is that really what you told him? I was at a loss for words, but Ethan was not. He said that it's pretty clear they are trying to plant seeds of doubt in him about our relationship, but he is not interested as he knows me well enough to know my character, and that even if there was something serious in my past, parents who loved and supported me or even just wanted grandchildren would keep it a secret to avoid ruining my relationship. My dad said he already has 2 grandchildren and motioned towards my sister. Ethan said my dad must have been very supportive of my sister for her to be able to start a family while he tries to run off any guy I bring home. And my dad's response was very casual but extremely shocking. He said, of course, she's actually mine. Everyone was quiet for a few moments until Ethan spoke up and said that now all of the abuse they've only put me through is starting to make sense. My mom said he's spouting nonsense and that I have not been abused in any way. She then looked at me and admitted her marriage had a rocky start, but both she and my father have moved past that. I was too busy replaying my entire life in my head to say anything. The previous boyfriends, the lack of support for my social outings growing up, the volleyball games I had to have a friend drive me to because my parents were always too busy, the rage I was always at risk of facing if I ever spoke my mind, all while my sister got the opposite. I started to cry, the hardest I ever have. Ethan immediately announced that we are leaving. My dad demanded we stay where we are so we can clear things up, but Ethan ignored him as he pulled me out of my chair and led me away. My mom screamed at me not to leave and that this guy was trying to isolate me from my family. I yelled back that if anyone had been trying to isolate me, it was her for my whole life. As we drove back to Ethan's place, my mom sent me several text messages cursing me out, saying one mistake doesn't change the fact that my dad loved, supported, and raised me, and that he would always be my real father. Ethan said he's not my dad. He's an abusive, controlling asshole who was taking his insecurities out on me. I ended up blocking both of my parents' numbers because they were saying some truly awful things to me, both about myself and Ethan. Ethan said he was expecting them to be crazy, but this was far worse than he could have anticipated. He said I need to go into therapy immediately and that he will pay for anything my insurance doesn't cover. My parents showed up at my apartment twice yesterday to demand I come out and speak to them, but I've been staying at Ethan's all weekend and will likely be here all week. I'm not sure if this is the update you all wanted. I had countless people enraged at me for being spineless and not standing up to my parents, and while I had planned on doing so, that's not what happened. I don't know what is going to happen with my parents or where I go from here, but now that the holiday is over, I can spend some time looking for a good therapist. Thank you so much for making it to the end of the video, and thank you also to partner of the channel, GamerSupps. Use code DLAM to support the channel and get 10% off of your purchase, link in the description. I'm sure many of you like me have a hankering for daily caffeine, so go check them out. Lately, I've been a big fan of Titty Milk and Acid Rain, but they've got dozens of other flavors for y'all to try out. Anyway, thanks again for reaching the end, and I hope you all have an amazing passage of the next 24 hours.